Do you ever get the feeling in your everyday life that something just isn't right? I mean, things for the most part are in their right place, but not everything, and you're just not sure why. Well, if you feel this way, you're not alone, and today we're looking into exactly why that is. Here are 5 tech conspiracies that might actually be true. Number 5, predictive programming. Imagine for a minute you're watching a movie, and a scene happens on screen that sticks in your mind, but really you don't think too much about it because, well, it's just a movie. But then imagine that years later, the very event depicted on screen all those years back unfolds in real life, almost as if it were scripted. Is that merely a coincidence? Well, with so many examples, some people don't think so. They call it the theory of predictive programming. A concept that claims the media is subtly conditioning us to accept planned future events. And so, are our favorite movies and TV shows being used as tools to actually control our minds?
In times like these, most men become highly suggestible. They listen eagerly for any voice which sounds authoritative. They listen eagerly for anyone who can tell them what is wrong and what to do to right it.
The idea of predictive programming suggests that governments, the New World Order, or other powerful entities use our entertainment as tools of mass psychological conditioning. This idea was first introduced by researcher Alan Watt, who argued that exposing people to certain scenarios in fiction could make them more accepting of similar real-life events. Take, for example, the plot of the movie Contagion and the real-life COVID-19 pandemic. Obviously, they were different, but the parallels were certainly there. A virus that gets transmitted from animal to human, supposedly. Airborne, the world shutting down. According to Watt, predictive programming is a subtle form of psychological conditioning provided by the media to acquaint the public with planned societal changes to be implemented by our leaders. If these changes ever come to pass, the theory goes that the public will accept them as natural progressions, avoiding resistance or outrage.
It's almost like coupling an idea with the drama, and it's downloaded like a virus into your subconscious, and you're being programmed, and it's called predictive programming.
An often cited case of this is the 1898 novel Futility, which depicted a massive ship, the biggest in the world, named Titan, striking an iceberg and then sinking, causing mass casualties. A plot that very much mirrors the real-life fate of the Titanic 14 years later. And really, when you dig in, examples of predictive programming can be seen everywhere. From The Simpsons predicting Donald Trump's presidency, to The Hunger Games portraying a dystopian future where society is completely controlled. Believers argue that these fictional portrayals prepare our minds for eventual acceptance of similar real-world situations. Really, The Simpsons have seemed to have knocked it out of the park, as they have a crazy amount of predictions that have actually come true. Smartwatches, the FIFA scandal, Disney buying 20th Century Fox. Have they been leading us in some sort of way, or do they just have so many episodes that they're bound to hit on some stuff? And critics argue this, and also that these so-called predictions are nothing more than coincidence or a form of selective bias, the human tendency to find patterns where none actually exist. For example, a scene from The Simpsons that aired in 1996 showed a magazine with a $9 fare next to an image of the Twin Towers, which conspiracy theorists claim predicted 9/11.
$9? This one's on me.
However, the reality could simply be that our brains are wired to find meaning in randomness, connecting dots that may not actually be connected. UFOs and UAPs have been all in the news the past few years. There's government officials and whistleblowers coming forward with proof. And now, as I've mentioned on this channel before, talking about aliens isn't nearly as taboo as it was just a decade ago. And many of us are left wondering, well, why talk about it now? Why has the government decided to declassify this all at this moment? Well, predictive programming might be the reason, and that maybe in the very near future they know of some invasion coming, or perceived invasion, that they have to prepare us for in order for us to accept it when it happens.
My gosh. We're all going against the wind. The wind's 120 knots from the west. Look at that thing, dude.
Ultimately, predictive programming is a theory that plays on our fears, our desire to find order in the chaos that is life, and our natural inclination to distrust those in power. It provides a neat explanation for complex, often tragic events. I mean, it's either that, or all those shows and movies you crave to watch to escape from your life are really there to make you obey, and left wanting to be told how to act, even without realizing it. Number 4. Our world of bots. It wasn't that long ago when we only suspected that our phones and Siri were listening to and tracking our moves. And now, we all know that to be true. I'm talking about those times you tell your friend about a new shoe you like or a movie you want to see. And then, almost like magic, you start seeing that exact thing pop up all over your computer and phone. And not only do we know this is real, but we freely accept it because it's a small price to pay for having your phone and being connected to everything at all times. But beyond that, the next level is something you might find interesting. And it is the idea that all those people you chat with online, well, they aren't people at all, and they're bots. And this notion has a name called the dead internet theory. And it suggests that sometime around 2016 or 2017, the internet as we knew it slowly died, phased out and replaced almost entirely by bots, automated content, and manipulative algorithms. So instead of real people sharing, talking, and even arguing online, well, a huge percentage of the internet is now filled with non-human activity. And bots are responsible for pushing content, interacting with posts, and even driving entire online trends. Chances are you've talked with them thinking they were real flesh and blood the entire time. If this could be done, well then whoever was controlling it would have some serious power. So it's understandable that this whole idea isn't too far-fetched. In 2016, a report by the security firm Imperva found that bots were responsible for more than half of all web traffic. And just think about that, more than half.
Across the web, what's really important to understand is bots are really, really prevalent. In fact, what people don't understand is half of website traffic online right now is made up of bots.
And as technology has evolved, especially with the rise of AI language models like ChatGPT, it's become even easier for bots to blend in, creating content that looks and feels like something a real person might have written. And Timothy Shoup from the Copenhagen Institute for Future Studies predicted that by 2030, up to 99% of content online could be AI generated. The dead internet theory also points a finger at tech giants like Google. And have you ever noticed that despite the promise of millions of search results, only a few pages seem genuinely relevant? Well, this is no accident. And what's happening is search engines are filtering out the majority of content, limiting what we see to a curated and artificial version of the web. And all the results create the appearance that the internet is full and bustling. In reality, it's all an empty facade. Recently in 2024, Google itself admitted that its search results were being overwhelmed with websites that seemed more like they were designed to attract search engines than real people. And content created solely to game the system, rather than inform or engage, has become rampant. And AI, it seems, is making that problem even worse. On Twitter, accounts posting oddly similar messages have gained thousands of likes and retweets. Are these viral tweets really resonating with people, or are they being artificially inflated by bots to create the illusion of popularity? And the acquisition of Twitter by Elon Musk brought the issue of bot activity into the spotlight, with conflicting reports on just how many accounts are fake, though estimates range from around 5 to over 13% of all users, with Musk himself saying it was about 20.
Really, I'd say that maybe the single most important reason that we're moving to having a small monthly payment for use of the X system is it's the only way I can think of to combat vast armies of bots.
Reddit, TikTok, and even YouTube has all faced similar issues. Reddit moved to restrict access to its data after realizing that it was being used to train AI models, effectively turning genuine user content into fuel for future automated interactions. On TikTok, AI-generated influencers have started promoting products and popular content created purely to manipulate users. And on YouTube, fake views became such a problem that engineers worried the platform's algorithms might start treating these fake interactions as the real ones, a phenomenon they called the inversion. The dead internet theory, at its core, is all about control. Our precious online world feels very busy, very alive, but ultimately, it's artificial, crafted to shape our thoughts, decisions, and beliefs. But maybe you already knew this. Maybe you don't really care. Number 3, FEMA camps. The idea of FEMA camps has been floating around for decades. I'm not talking about ones meant to actually help humanity. Many have heard about these, so if you haven't, we'll get into it in a second, but what makes this one so scary in part is that it isn't just some fringe theory found in a dark corner of the web. What FEMA has been up to has been discussed by lawmakers, debated by the media, and ultimately become a part of mainstream pop culture.
At FEMA, a huge part of our mission is to make sure we are preparing the nation for catastrophic events.
And this whole idea is that FEMA, the wholesome agency created to manage national disasters, is actually preparing to wield some unimaginable power during a time of chaos. It might not be next month or next year, but the fear is that once a crisis hits, be it a natural disaster, economic collapse, or some orchestrated emergency, well, FEMA will then declare martial law, and its so-called emergency powers would kick in. Under this theory, FEMA would effectively assume control over the government, or more likely be working side by side with them. And under the guise of helping people, actually round up citizens, hold them in camps, strip them of their freedom and perhaps their lives. This conspiracy dates back to the 1970s, but it picked up steam in the 80s, fueled in part by the development of the Rex 84 plan, a real contingency plan created during the Cold War, which outlined the mass detention of American citizens in case of a national emergency. The internment of Japanese Americans during World War II is often cited as proof that such measures aren't merely theoretical. And they've happened before, and so, why couldn't they happen again?
Come what may, Seattle's Japanese are packed and ready, awaiting Uncle Sam's orders.
And fast forward to the 1990s, and we see the militia movement in America growing in tandem with fears of government overreach. Groups like the Posse Comitatus and the Militia of Montana began issuing warnings about FEMA concentration camps, claiming that the government was preparing to lock away hardcore patriots who stood in opposition to the establishment. Even the 1998 X-Files movie couldn't resist weaving this conspiracy into its plot, showing how deeply the theory had seeped into public consciousness.
Agencies will come under the power of the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, the secret government.
By the time Barack Obama was elected in 2008, the idea then reached new heights. The murmurs of FEMA camps had shifted from the fringes to mainstream political discussions, fueled by fears of the dreaded New World Order. Politicians were referencing the camps, and the theory reached another fever pitch in 2015 during the military training operation known as Jade Helm 15. Many feared that this was the moment the government would finally make its move, but the operation came and went without a single person being thrown into an internment camp. Still, the fear and suspicion remained, especially among those who believed that one day a major crisis would see FEMA stepping in not as saviors, but as jailers. Now, the thing about conspiracy theories is that, well, they often evolve over time, incorporating new elements and adapting to current fears. FEMA camps aren't just about imprisoning dissidents anymore, they're about population control. And so, what do you believe? Is FEMA truly the emergency relief agency it claims to be, or is there something else going on behind the curtains, lurking just beneath its bureaucratic surface? Number 2. The Great Rewrite. What if the rise and fall of Rome, the grand civilizations of Greece and Egypt, and even the stories of Jesus himself were all nothing more than a carefully crafted illusion? A lie that spanned centuries, designed to manipulate the past in order to control the present. This is exactly what Anatoly Fomenko, a Russian mathematician turned historical rebel, claims has happened in his controversial theory known as the New Chronology. And he's not alone in these beliefs. Fomenko argues that most of what we consider ancient history is little more than a forgery, pieced together by power-hungry entities like the Vatican, the Holy Roman Empire, and the Russian House of Romanov, each with a vested interest in shaping the world's narrative to their own ends. And he claims that before the year 1600, the world's historical timeline had been completely fabricated, generated to make it appear as though our cultures were much older than they really are. And he compresses all of our recorded history from the Neolithic to the early Middle Ages into a span of just 1,000 years. It sounds wild, but Fomenko wasn't the first to suggest such a notion. His ideas were inspired by Russian scholar Nikolai Morozov, much earlier the French scholar Jean Hardioun, who, in the 17th century, suggested that many Greek and Roman texts had actually been forged by Benedictine monks. Even Isaac Newton dabbled in the idea of altered timelines, expressing disconnect with conventional chronology and proposing revisions of his own. In the 1970s, Fomenko worked on these ideas, and in the theory of new chronology says that true written history only emerged around 800 AD. Everything before that, an elaborate ruse, stitched together from recycled events and falsehoods. It also includes the assertion that Jesus Christ was not as old as they say. He was a figure modeled after a Byzantine emperor from the 12th century. In this case, Jesus was born in Crimea in 1152 AD, and was crucified in Istanbul in 1185 AD. All those stories of the Bible were merely a blend of different historical figures, all rolled into one to fit a narrative crafted by the powerful in order to control the masses. In this reconstructed timeline, for example, the city of Jerusalem, ancient Rome, and Troy are one and the same. A singular entity he calls New Rome, located at Euros Castle in modern-day Turkey. He dismisses conventional chronology as fabrications, constructed timelines without evidence by early historians who duplicate accounts of the same events to extend the timeline unnecessarily. It's easy to see the appeal of the new chronology, as it suggests that the truth has been stolen from us, but the real history of humanity is hidden beneath layers of lies. It's a great mystery, then. This theory taps into the same distrust of authority that fuels many conspiracy theories, offering a version of history where the underdog, the people, need to work hard to find the real answers. Number 1. RFID, the truth behind the tags. In a world where technology advances shape our everyday lives, some innovations seem to offer nothing but convenience. That is, until we look a little closer. Radio frequency identification, or RFID, is one such piece of tech. On the surface, it's a tool for efficient tracking, a practical solution for inventory and logistics, but is there more to the story? And are we unknowingly being tracked by these tiny chips embedded in our belongings? RFID tags are everywhere. They're tiny, often hidden in plain sight. They can be found in our credit cards, passports, pet collars, even medical devices. And they all contain a microchip and an antenna that allow them to transmit information wirelessly. They're what we use in warehouses to track shipments, in stores to monitor inventory, and in public transit to manage tickets. And really, that all sounds efficient, but almost too efficient. The idea that something this powerful is silently following our movements, logging information without our direct consent, has undoubtedly sparked fear and theories about what they are actually being used for. And to understand the concerns, we need to look at RFID readers, the devices that bring these tags to life. RFID readers emit radio waves, communicating with the tags and extracting data like a unique identifier. In some industries, they're used to manage assets in real time, quickly locating anything equipped with a tag. The concept is practical, but when those readers are placed in unexpected locations, shopping centers, public buildings, and even by law enforcement, it's easy to see why some people worry. I mean, who's collecting this data and why? Of course, RFID isn't just about tagging objects, it's also about tagging life. These chips are also now routinely embedded in pets to help locate them if they get lost. But the tech has also made its way into humans. Medical implants use RFID chips for patient identification and monitoring. This raises the question, well, what happens if these chips end up in the wrong hands? Well, could someone use this information to track us, or even worse, control us? Some even claim these chips can be used for mind control. And if they aren't there yet, well, they will be. Or that governments are covertly embedding them to monitor every citizen's movements. Others think they are the mark of some Orwellian future where freedom is just an illusion. But as gripping as those theories are, the reality of RFID's capabilities is far less sinister. These tags don't have GPS functionality, and they can't actively track you across a city or spy on your personal life. In fact, RFID tags have a limited range and need to be near a reader to work at all. These chips can only operate within certain confines, at least, and that's the official word that they've put out. Regardless, the privacy concerns are not entirely unfounded. There is a fine line between convenience and invasion. Some worry that the ability of RFID to collect data, even unintentionally, could one day be exploited. Imagine these readers being placed subtly in public places, logging your presence without your knowledge. The tech has limited range, but that range is often enough to gather data you didn't intend to share. So, do you really want that? This technology has certainly revolutionized how we manage information, and it does make our lives more convenient and our supply chains more efficient. But it's also a reminder that every advance we make in this life comes with a cost. So where do we draw the line? Should we embrace the efficiency and trust that regulations protect our privacy, or should we be wary of what else might be possible? In the end, the way things are going, it doesn't appear to even matter, and that's what they count on. Slowly, the tech gets rolled out. We get all excited because we can order a package off Amazon and receive it that same day and even track where it is. We won't ever have our luggage lost and can always find a pet. So whatever. As long as life is simpler and easier, we'll all just bow our heads and say thank you very much. So there were 5 tech conspiracies that actually might be true. If you did enjoy this, please consider checking out our Patreon page, where you get exclusive videos each and every week, plus access to an entire library of some crazy true crime stories. Thanks so much for tuning in. I'll see you all in the next one.